Hello Year 6, welcome to your English session. Now, on Friday's video, I did say that the new structure that we're applying, that you've already seen in Big Read, I did say it will always apply in Big Read, and it will, it absolutely will. It will often apply in English, but not quite always, because obviously we have our set way of doing things in English. We always start with a cold write, always end with a hot write, and a neat write-up. So on those days, it won't apply quite as much. There won't be the same sort of challenges. And also because there aren't necessarily questions to do in English, that 3 ways of challenge, that might not always be there either. But I am going to endeavour to try and make sure that it is still as accessible and that it's gone over as much as possible. We'll still do starters, still do recaps, we'll still do me doing the teaching, doing the modelling. It'll only really be in the 3 different levels of challenge that things will be different. So that being said then, with it being a cold write day, I'm not doing a starter today, quite the same. On the cold write and the hot write days, that will really be the only focus, because the whole point of the cold write and the hot write, as you know, is to be working independently. And if you're being given too much, then it's no longer independent. And we can't say then that that is independent work. It can't be assessed as independent work. So what you do need to know though is what on earth we're doing, what we're writing about. And to help you with what we're writing about, I've got, and I'll just move myself over to this side because you know what these columns are. They're pupil assessment and teacher assessment. So they're for you and for me. Success criteria is necessary. These are the things that you're going to need to include in today's pieces of writing. And you might be able to work out from this success criteria what genre of writing you're going to be doing. So I'm going to expect to see expanded noun phrases being used, figurative language that includes similes, metaphors, personification, alliteration, vivid imagery, etc. That you have a really good authorial tone. So it sounds like a story. Huge clue there, massive clue as to what genre of writing you might be doing. That you write in third person with the use of a narrator. Second massive clue. Combine that with story, you've got exactly what genre we're doing. That you're using a range of sentence types, including simple sentences, compound sentences, and complex sentences. Those complex sentences should include instances where you use relative clauses and subordinate clauses. Of course, I'm not going to tell you exactly what all these things are right now. That's not the point with the cold write. The cold write is you showing me if you can already do these things without me reminding you what they are. But they are things we've gone over. They are things you've learned. Linking paragraphs. We did that in the last genre of writing. Punctuation for parentheses. We did that in the last unit of writing. And use of semicolons to connect 2 main clauses. They're the things I'll be wanting to see. And I'll be wanting to see them, as most of you will have already guessed, I'll be wanting to see them used in your writing of a narrative story. That's what you're going to be doing. But I'm not going to just throw you in at the deep end. I've done some bits to make sure that I'm helping you along the way. So what I've done is I have written my own version of the beginning of a chapter in our book, Who Let the Gods Out. It's based around chapter 7. Now, you've not read chapter 7 yet. Well, you might have done. You might have decided you're so into the book that you want to read the next 5 chapters when you got them. If you have, that's absolutely fine. Just make sure you're then following the right bits as we do them in the lessons. And it's all about Eliot going into this cave and the trouble that awaits him as he does. So I'm going to read it to you. And your job will be today to carry on this narrative story and this chapter. I've helped you a bit more as well though, but we'll get to that when I've read you my opening. So this is my opening. And if we think back to some of those things on the success criteria, you should be able to see a lot of these even in my opening. So, silence. Well, virtually silence at least. So already we've got 2 different types of sentence. We've got a simple sentence, as simple as it gets, 1 word for emphasis. That's also authorial technique. And then a compound sentence. Okay, silence. Well, virtually silence at least. Somewhere from the very bowels of the cave, personification, caves don't really have bowels. Somewhere from the very bowels of the cave there floated the steady, monotonous dripping of single water droplets, colliding against the ancient, unyielding granite. Expanded noun phrase. Eliot took another step. He didn't dare walk any faster than one step at a time. Two clauses being held together by a semicolon. Lots being ticked off already. His footfall, gentle as he could have placed it, still sent an echo rippling down the tunnel. It seemed deafening in the otherwise soundless void. Another semicolon connecting two main clauses. Breath held, teeth clenched, fists balled. He waited to see if he had been heard. From the depths of the darkness, like some giant stomach churning in hunger, there came an angry, pain-filled groan. So that's my opening. There's lots of that success criteria in there already. I'm showing you just how easy it is to get all of those checklist things in. Some of you might have recognized the Alan Peat sentence type there. Breath held, teeth clenched, fist balled. So that's tell, give 3 examples, but I've done give 3 examples, tell, show, sorry, not tell. So what I'd like you to do is carry on that story, but I've done a suggestion for you as to what your paragraphs could be about and how you could carry on this story. You don't have to use this. However, I would strongly recommend you do, because you're not, one thing you don't get given with a cold write is you don't get given that planning time. So this can act as your plan. I've done it for you, and then you can focus on the writing. So what I would suggest you do is from there, and you're welcome to write that in if you want, so you can literally continue it, or you can just jump straight in with your bit. Whatever you think works best for you. If it was me, I'd write that out. I know it takes a bit longer, but then I'd have it and it would flow together. But that's up to you. So from there, I'd then continue that introduction. I don't necessarily think you need to continue that as a paragraph. You could leave that as a paragraph, do the next paragraph, but it's still introductory. So I'd continue the introduction paragraph, completing a really detailed description of the cave, Eliot's movements down towards the noise, and what emotions he's feeling. So that would be my first step. Another paragraph where it continues to describe the cave, Eliot moving in further into the cave towards the noise, and how he's feeling. Lots of description, lots of expanded noun phrases, lots of sentence types, really powerful. That's what you want to be doing. From there, I'd then move into Eliot reaching whatever or whoever is making this noise, describing what happens then, and making sure that you continue to describe that scene, thinking of the 5 senses, sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, and then describing both the scene around him, but also the person or creature that's making those noises, and how Eliot feels when he sees them or it. From there, I'd then finish off with the person or creature trying to attack Eliot, and Eliot having to make his escape. And that is enough. That's your story. That's going to be plenty to be getting on with. Obviously, you can go back on this video and pause on those bits so that you can be writing them out. So, clear expectations then from what I want to see in your cold write. I want to see you writing the part of the story about Eliot going into the cave and discovering another immortal, like Virgo's an immortal, but an evil one. They can look like, act like, do whatever you want, but it's an evil immortal. I want you to use that checklist. You'll need to go back and pause it or write it out. People who write it out, I have to say, where it's written out in the top and I can see you've ticked it, that's really useful, and they tend to be the better quality because I know you've been following it. So you should be using that checklist. You should also be using your knowledge of the text of Who Let the Gods Out to help you with your characterization of Eliot. I don't want Eliot to suddenly be a 32-year-old man who's a knight in shining armor, who's got sword skills. He's not. He's a boy. He's a school boy who's out of his depth and doesn't know what's going on. If you want to include Virgo with him, absolutely fine. You're more than welcome to. But again, use the book to help you characterize Virgo. In terms of quantity, I would expect that for a cold write, where it's a narrative, that you're going to be writing a minimum of probably about 1.5 pages of A4. That's the normal book size. Roughly 1.5 pages. You're going to have a minimum of 3 paragraphs. It's probably going to be more like 4. So 1.5 pages seems about right to me. If you're typing up, that would still be 1.5 pages, but don't you go be trying to play any of those funny games with me that I know students play, where you stick it up to like font size 24 and then go, yep, that's 1.5 pages. No, not falling for that. I've been in this game long enough to know that trick. If you're doing 1.5 pages typed on the computer, it should be font size 12 or 14. Yeah, you see, I know you, I'm watching you. So that's the expectation, and that's your task for today. I'm going to stop rattling on now because it's a cold write and I want you to have as long as possible. If you need more time on this, that's absolutely fine. If you want to message me saying, Mr. Hall, what I'm going to do, because I want to have 2 days on my cold write, if you message me and say, I'm going to sort of be a day behind for a little bit and then I'm going to miss a lesson, which lesson is it best to miss? I'll tell you which one the best one to miss is, and then you can still do your cold write for 2 days. But you don't need to. Remember, the point of a cold write is to see what you can already do, so I can then make sure I teach you the things that you don't know how to do. It doesn't need to be perfect yet. That's why you have 1 day for the cold write, but we give you at least 2 days for the hot write. Hopefully that all makes sense. If it doesn't, try and message me as soon as you can. Don't start, get confused, spend an hour doing something, not knowing what you're doing, and then have to do it again. If you don't understand, message me quick. Message me as soon as you've watched the video, then I can try and help you. Anyway, hopefully that all makes sense. Best of luck. I love any time we're doing narratives. I love them. So I'm looking forward to reading them. I'll speak to you again tomorrow with tomorrow's big read and tomorrow's English. But that's everything from me. So best of luck. I look forward to reading them and I'll see you tomorrow. But for now, goodbye.